ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joined alongside me, as always, Seth Varnadore and Robert Steeg. Man, a whole bunch to get to tonight as we kick off, 2 Mondays left before the season opener? 3 Mondays?
3 Mondays, right?
It's 20,
it's like 19 days or something like that. I don't know.
Time's flying, folks. Time's flying. Let's get to, I guess, the topic at large is USF head coach Jeff Scott on Monday morning announced that Baylor transfer quarterback Gary Bohannon had won the quarterback competition over Timmy McClain and others. And he is now QB1 for the 2022 season for the Bulls. And look at that. You get a cool graphic introducing QB1 Gary Bohannon, hashtag US2F, hashtag horns up. And quite frankly, what had all but been a lock since he got here in May, if we're going to be completely candid here, folks, we said it in May when the addition was announced, you don't pull the trigger on bringing in someone like Gary Bohannon to have him ride the pine. This was a win now move, and it's really kind of cemented the win now move by the follow-up news that Timmy McClain has entered the transfer portal, and probably in the swiftest and quickest thing that's ever happened at USF, he's already off the online roster. So where do you guys want to start? I mean, obviously USF has a QB1. It'll be either
no. Scroll back up. No.
I want to start with this tweet.
Yeah. So, Seth, could you read that tweet for the audience, and then let us know who wrote it and what kind of fool would say something like that?
USF is in good hands for the foreseeable future with Gary this year and Timmy providing himself as a serviceable backup and leader after this season. Let's go Bulls. At Robert Steeg.
What's up?
Steeg, has any take of yours ever been cold? Has any take been as cold as it's been in the shortest amount of time possible ever?
In the shortest amount of time. Yeah, that was like record timing.
I could reference you back to last week, but now that take is starting to warm up a little bit.
Yeah, I somehow went from like irredeemably bad take last week into an even worse take this week that somehow made last week's take actually somewhat palatable. It's incredible the long play that I just had there, and luckily the internet never forgets anything. So I'll ride the L there. I had heard inklings of some shaking wagon wheels at some point in the morning, and I was like, the person I was speaking to about it was pretty candid and was like, yeah, Timmy McClain Sr.'s pretty upset. And then I saw Timmy McClain Sr.'s tweet like shortly thereafter. He probably posted it like 2 or 3 minutes after I did or something, and I was like, shit, I should probably delete my tweet. But I was like, nah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I usually will give like a half-ass, boomer ass reply sometimes on, the tweeters to spark the masses back up. And then when I got the news, like maybe 2 minutes before Timmy entered the portal, and he was going to enter the portal, I was like, I should probably delete my tweet now. And then I was like, you know what? I didn't back down last week. I'm letting it ride, baby. Letting that shit ride, and I'll never let it die.
Now, this does not seem to be a possible Travis Marsh situation where you go in and come back out, right? We're pretty positive with him being ripped off the roster swiftly that this is not a come back out of the portal, or do you think that's a possibility?
It sure feels like this is a thank you for your service, good luck in all your future endeavors kind of situation. I don't think Jeff Scott's going to be clamoring to bring Timmy back in.
You think Timmy saw the contract Travis Marsh signed when he came back? It was like, you know what? I'm not. I'm good. I'll take my chances.
Pretty much. And I mean, Trey Marsh, just playing the absolute long game here. I mean, by default, he's QB number 2. I mean, real Alex Moran type stuff right here from Trey Marsh. Just
4D chess from Trey Marsh, but Galaxy Brain by Jordan Smith is the real discussion here.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier today. If something happens to Marsh and then they decide they don't want to burn red shirts or something or play the true freshman too early, Steeg Tradamus coming in with his pick at quarterback.
One touchdown is all I ask for from Jordan Smith, and then I will forever. I'll never let you guys forget that.
Well, I mean, we're at my best case scenario is tying you at quarterback.
Yeah, let's kind of break down the Gary Bohannon. I think that's kind of it's obviously the more important thing because he's still on the team. Does this news change your trajectory for the season? It still feels like 4 wins is the baseline, maybe creep up to 5, maybe steal a 6th game here. But it seems like really on the surface level in a vacuum, nothing's really changed for the Bulls as we head into September 3rd versus BYU at 4 p.m. Eastern.
I think my mind would have been more changed if it lingered longer. I think this is kind of was as soon as he came on campus, obviously they're going to have a competition. And I don't think, and that's another thing we can touch on later. The competition wasn't only in camp. I think a lot of people are like, there was a week they did Timmy wrong. The competition was as soon as Bohannon stepped on campus, it started. Yep. But we can talk about that more later. But my expectations haven't really changed because I anticipated he was going to start as soon as he got here. It certainly seemed like it was going to happen, and it has happened now. So my expectations have not really changed. It's still, unfortunately, you're coming in with a really just killer schedule, especially out of conference. If you could flip schedules from next year and this year, right, you're probably feeling pretty good about going to a bowl game. But alas, you can't do that.
And Steve, this seems like a win now move for the Bulls with Gary Bohannon. I mean, it started out that in May. Your thoughts on, does it really change anything for the Bulls, either this year or next, quite frankly?
I think actually Eric put it really well for what I was going to say. I think it actually solidifies at least a little bit more of the talking in the background of, you have 2 serviceable quarterbacks. If shit hits the fan against BYU, at what point, would you pull QB1, Gary, if it was Timmy or whoever it was? You kind of always would have
4 drives in.
Yeah. You would always have that doubt of at what point would Jeff Scott pull the trigger and start the other guy. And so now at least you don't really have that option, which might be better for Jeff Scott and his tenure. I think, we never really had solidified QB1, solidified QB2 quite like this. Coming into his first year with Jordan McLeod and Noah Johnson and Cade Ford, and you kind of had a carousel there. And then last year, of course, you have Jaron Williams, you have Cade Fortin. You never really were able to solidify, the roles at least. So now you can kind of take, Gary's got to be the guy. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. There's no, hey, we gotta, see if Trey Marsh has something in him at least a little bit. You're basically putting it all in it. And I think that makes it a little bit easier for the staff. I think you can kind of get flustered in the moment of, if God forbid Gary, throws a pick on like the second drive or third drive or something like that, you might have the option of saying, okay, Gary, you don't got to worry. You don't have to look over your shoulder here. Shake it off, pat yourself on the back, look at the playbook again, talk with your receivers, figure out what happened, and then go back out there and get it that way.
And I think to your point, right, there's no really that looking over the shoulder situation. Last year we started hearing it in fall camp, and then through like the USF luncheon that happens on Wednesday a year ago at this time. It was, Cade's going to start, but Timmy is the guy. Timmy's the future. He's the best guy on the roster. He's just too raw right now. And I think now with Timmy gone, it's clear Gary is the number one. Trey Marsh is the clear number two, and then the freshman and Jordan Smith are just going to fight for the scraps, quite frankly. And I think having that official pecking order really kind of solidifies everything else in place. Steeg and Seth, you both have talked about it over the last year about having to kind of implement different offenses for whatever quarterback happened to be on the field at that given time. There's a different play set call sheet for when Cade was on the field. There was a different, call sheet when Noah Johnson was on the field back in the day, especially for Timmy, Trey Marsh. It's kind of clear cut, and it also stabilizes the offensive line. Now, Trey Jacobs and Donovan Jennings aren't flip-flopping. You've got your set, order of offensive line. It's getting the pieces in. And, I know Jeff Scott shouldn't have the leash that he does with the quarterback room specifically, but I think him sticking to his guns prior to fall camp saying, hey, we want to name QB1 after the first scrimmage so they can get the reps heading into BYU, and him sticking to that plan to me at least, is the step in the right direction that you want to see from this coaching staff. Is we're sticking to our guns. This is going to be our guy, and let the chips fall where they may in regards to if someone transfers out.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as livid as some people were about how this all unfolded, I would have been equally as livid had they tabled this and said, "Oh, we need another week to decide this." That we saw someone's meltdown today in our Slack channel. That would have been me had they not done this. I would have been beside myself. I'd have been like, "This, we got to have this discussion now because you're just delaying the inevitable at this point." And in fact, it semantics aside of how this entire thing went down, they did the thing that they needed to do, which was, we talked about it beforehand and the entire time in the entire offseason. They needed to bring in a veteran guy, someone who could potentially compete for the starting job, push Timmy where he needed to go. And here we are now, week one. We have our solidified starter. The ends justified the means at this point.
Yeah, and Timmy leaving may save Jeff Scott from himself, because he is kind of quick to pull quarterbacks, it seems like, and play musical chairs the position. So no proven backup, really. I mean, Marsh has played all right, but now you kind of got to ride with Bohannon, which I think is the right decision. One thing this also says, I've seen a couple people say in the chat, Bill G said it as well, and we've been saying this since the transfer was official. In my mind, as soon as they took Bohannon, that signaled to me that they were very comfortable with Byron Brown, that they thought he could be the guy going forward. So they didn't really care if they lost one of the quarterbacks ahead of him. Because if they do, whatever, you get Bohannon for 1 year, probably 2, and then Byron Brown takes over, and you're out, you're good. Only one guy can play, so it's nice to have good depth. But if you feel really good about one of your young guys, then okay, it's not as much of a risk to bring in Bohannon. If you're, I can bring in Bohannon, and if Marsh or McClain leaves, well, I got Byron Brown here. He's going to be ready to go in a year. And it really seems like they really like him. He's tested great, or he did great all year in grit score. He was top 10 on the team. I think he was number 4 on the team.
He was
in
up there.
Summer. Yeah, Bohannon was second. So, that shows you something right there as well. But I think that's also signals that they feel really comfortable with the young guys they have at quarterback, even the class after McClain.
Right.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, you still have 5 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. It's not like in the end of 2018 where Sterling Gilbert basically forces out 2 guys who had multiple years left to play football, with Brett Keane transferring to Charlotte, Chris Oladokin ended up at Samford, and then ultimately going to South Dakota State, where he's now, he was drafted into the NFL, and now he's vying for a QB spot with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's the cupboard's not bare here. If you have someone like Timmy leave, you still have 5 options, and I think that's where USF got into trouble in 2019, 2018 is they ran out of options and they're trotting out Kirk Rigel. And, we love Kirk Rigel on this year podcast, but you're not going to win games with Kirk Rigel playing quarterback. And I think you saw that. And then in 2020, it was just Jeff Scott trying to restock the quarterback room with whatever was available at that moment. And it took him a long time to get Noah Johnson to even at least agree to bring Noah Johnson in just because of how things played out. And in 2021, you go in and bring a guy in and Jaron Williams, who's not even playing football anymore. Cade Fortin walked on at Arkansas. It's such a crapshoot. At least I feel comfortable with the 5 guys that are still in this QB room. I feel more comfortable about this room than I have in the last 4 years at USF, regardless of Timmy leaving. And what's kind of surprising to me is we love Timmy, right? Fantastic player. He gave USF some spark last season, but I mean, he threw 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. And like Gary put up numbers in the Big 12 in primetime spots. He won the Big 12.
Go to my room.
He won the Big 12 and won the Sugar Bowl. Like, this is no slouch. This isn't some rando transfer coming in from Nevada or something to take in a spot. This is a legitimate starter. And Blake Shapen was just a better fit for Baylor for this season going forward. They're closer to winning a national championship game than USF is by far. But Gary just elevates everything for the Bulls.
And Steve, go ahead. My kid came in the room and totally blew my train
got distracted.
Totally blew my train of thought.
You're good. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult situation to kind of stomach, but it was like we kind of mentioned there, it was going to happen one way or another. But like the cupboard's not bare at this stage of Jeff Scott's tenure by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, he did exactly what we needed, what we had kind of been hinting that he had been needing to do when he came into USF after year 1. And, we watched the team trot out there during that COVID year. We were like, shit, he needs to inject talent into this roster top to bottom as soon as possible. And he did that. It took the transfers. It took the young guys. He took, he's getting picky with the guys that he's been offering out of high school, and it's for a reason. But like at some point, there's going to be attrition, especially in a room as fragile as a quarterback's room. This isn't just a USF problem either. I mean, you looked over the last, I think, 48 hours. Western Kentucky had basically the deciding factor, their quarterback controversy. It was Austin Reed, their transfer from West Florida, and then Garrett Doeg from West Virginia. And, Austin Reed won that battle. Garrett Doeg hit the portal like shortly thereafter. And this is going to happen the rest of the week. The more and more that these position battles are decided, whether it's a quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker, whomever it is, there's going to be attrition. That's kind of the nature of Miles Brennan, class of 2015, I think. Like he's been in school for a long time and he got a few medical waivers, but retires from football. Like this is just the nature of leading up to the beginning of camp and the new age of football that we're in right now. So, it sucks. It's terrible. I hate it. I hate losing a player that, did so much for USF last year, but you gotta move forward at this point. You have QB1, you've got a game in less than 3 weeks. All eyes are going to be on that game. It's a monumental moment for Jeff Scott to kind of solidify this praise and this talk that he's been saying that the team's different. The team's different. There's more talent. Here's your chance to prove it.
Yeah, and Miles Brennan's not the first person Brian Kelly's made retire prematurely, or in their career prematurely. I was going to say I had a guest on last week. Talking about the transfer portal, and quarterback is the spot where you can get, it has the most transfers and the most high quality transfers. So if for some reason Bohannon were to have a great year and leave, which I think if Bohannon is going to the draft, that means USF had a really good year. So you'd almost take that deal, I think. But the transfer portal you can get quarterbacks through there. It's not quite as dire as, well, Bohannon leaves, we got a bunch of young guys. Well, you can go get another old guy too if you need to. So
Right.
the transfer portal at quarterback position it's not like you're looking for an offensive tackle or something. Quarterback, there's going to be plenty of quality options there.
Yep.
Agreed. And I think Jeff Scott has shown that he can get guys to come here, from the transfer portal, especially quarterback. And, sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. So I'm not really worried about if Gary leaves after one season. I don't think he would leave to go up, play up a level. I think he'd only be leaving to go to the draft. But it just doesn't make sense to me why he would just stay for 1 year and bounce.
That's a pain in the ass to move like that too. Again, like
I think, and he's also part of the collective, so he's getting some money there. But if he has a good enough year that he's comfortable going into the draft, then USF is definitely in a bowl game, right? Like,
if Gary Bohannon is like sneaking into like the top 10, top 5 of like the NFL draft boards as far as quarterbacks go, I don't give a fuck at that point.
Yeah, you probably won 8 games.
Yeah, like fantastic. That'd be a hell of a resume. Hey, NFL scouts, I turned around two and X lost football teams.
It was 2 and 10. They were both 2 and 10.
Both 2 and 10. I turned around 2 and 10 football programs. You guys went 2 and 15 last year. Sign me up.
So future Jags quarterback Gary Bohannon.
Oh, don't put that curse on me.
So I think we've kind of covered it from the Gary Bohannon angle. Is like doesn't really affect much. Let's kind of go long term and kind of focus on Timmy McClain. He was a prized recruit for Jeff Scott coming into last season. Him and Jimmy Horn, they were not quite a package deal, but pretty close to a package deal. What does this do for Timmy going to the future? Steeg, I think you said on Twitter today. What good does it really do if you're just sitting out a year anyway? Why not? And Seth, you said you're kind of at your lowest value right now.
Yeah,
you just lost the starting job. You weren't particularly great last season. What value does Timmy have in the open market right now for any FBS or FCS team?
Right. It's tough because he's got an incredibly high ceiling to him. Bud Elliott, I think, was the one that said it. He's got a lot of talent. He's kind of that typical, group of 5 FCS quarterback that can run around and make plays and extend plays when it needs to. And a few people were likening him to Jordan Travis from Florida State. Those guys have their place in college football. But the problem is that you did it now rather than, potentially waiting until after the season, getting some additional film on yourself, maybe, having a communication with the staff. Hey, I want to be able to keep my redshirt this year so I can keep 3 years of eligibility, and then, go after the season wherever life takes you there. But when you do it now, you're kind of limiting your options a little bit, at least from the optics of it all, because not many schools are going to want to try to take a quarterback or bring in a quarterback right now, unless some sort of dire injury happens and you need to bring in more competition. I know that there was a bunch of UCF fans saying, oh, Timmy McClain, come on back home. First off, UCF has as many quarterbacks as we do right now. They're in their own version of what we just went through with John Reese Plumlee and Mikey Keene. Veteran guy got brought in, true freshman's kind of looking not so good. Who knows what's going to happen there. But then at that point, you're still going to have 5 quarterbacks left over. So that's not really an option. Most other schools are kind of filled up on scholarships right now. At least if someone transfers out, you could replace them there. But I'd hate to say it, but his only really best option right now is to go the JUCO route. Rebuild up because you can get the immediate eligibility, hopefully get some film and get some good playing time there, and then kind of restart it and see if you can put together a good enough resume to get back into the group of 5. FCS kind of realm, I don't think he would get kind of picked up by any Power 5 programs. It's unfortunate because, like I said, his ceiling is really high, but he's at his floor right now. Losing a QB competition and dipping out immediately doesn't really bode well most times for true freshmen.
Yeah, looking back at his recruiting profile, he was offered by USF, Boston College, Charlotte, Coastal Carolina. I heard he's not a good fit there, though, in Colorado State. Coastal Carolina would be interesting if he was gonna go somewhere that would fit him. I think that's what he needs to look for is scheme fit. I think he would fit very well there, despite what some experts have said in our Slack. I think Coastal would be a good fit for him. Charlotte would be interesting. Soon to be conference mate Charlotte. I'm sure that wouldn't freak everyone out. And then
the USF to Charlotte pipeline has begun.
I talked to Steeg about what if he transferred to FAU, would the fan base just blow a gasket collectively?
Oh, that'd be pretty good.
I
would enjoy that.
I don't know. Like, I'd have to look around at like different scholarship counts, but like that's the biggest problem right now for him is like, who has a scholarship available? Like, at this point, most of the coaching staffs are awarding walk-on scholarships at this point.
Yeah, I think he'd be best served staying and just riding out the year and then jumping in the portal in December, where people are a lot. And then especially if he gets some shots I'm sure he'll get chances to play this year. And I think this offense would help him. Will kind of showcase his skills a little bit better than the previous one. It seems like it's going to make things easier on the quarterback. So at least that's the hope and the thought now. So you could probably showcase some stuff, but leaving right now, you don't get that chance. And like, we had kind of alluded to, it seems like you're going out on the market at your lowest value because you didn't have I think if you watch him play, you feel different than if you just go back and look at his numbers. He did not have a great year statistically. He did a lot of stuff and kept USF in some games that they may not have been otherwise. But you go back and look at the numbers, and they're not great. Like, a lot of people are I've heard a lot of Mikey Keene slander. His numbers were far and away better than McClain's last year. So, he's going to transfer to UCF over and start over him and Plumlee, who came from Ole Miss. It's kind of Gus Malzahn's prototype quarterback almost. So I don't know. He's obviously got talent. He's a talented player. He got a lot put on him last year, and that's something we said is I thought they put way too much on his back last year.
They threw the ball a ton down.
They threw the ball like 40 or 50 times against Houston. One of the best defenses in the country. You're going to say, hey, drop back 40 times and throw the ball. Good luck. I thought they did a bad job last year with him. Mm-hmm. So they didn't do any favors to him last year. But I think it's premature to say that they didn't treat him fairly in terms of this competition. The competition starts as soon as Bohannon walks on campus. When you hear Jeff Scott talking about, somebody told us there was one car in the parking lot on Memorial Day. It was Gary Bohannon. You look at the grit score, top 10, Gary Bohannon every week. Byron Brown, top 10 every week. Timmy McClain, not in the top. Didn't see him in the top 10 one time. So that's not to say he's not a hard worker,
or
it's just like Gary.
11, but
Gary consistently, and those grit scores measure, work ethic and leadership. Those are pretty important at the quarterback position. So you want your quarterback to be a leader and one of your harder workers, and a guy that motivates others to get better, which is what that 4. If you're getting a 4 in the grit score, that's you're helping others better themselves as well. So he comes in with kind of a pro-like attitude, and he's a vet. So he comes in with a veteran attitude. We see in the chat, like he's comes in, he's got a notebook, he's ready to go. He's vocal. He's a good leader. I think he brings everything you want. It's not necessarily a slight to Timmy that he just comes in as more prepared because he's an older guy too.
Honestly, he brings he lends a sense of I don't know, accomplishment maybe or confidence. It just seems like he has it, I mean, it's so abstract, whatever it is, like for a quarterback, but it truly does seem like Gary has whatever it is to be a leader and a quarterback. And he lends that air of confidence and assurance to that and stability that you need at the quarterback position from a guy who's literally done it at one of the highest levels in college football. And it just makes a lot of sense why players have started to gravitate toward him, why the coaching staff brought him in the first place in May after seeing spring. Like, the spring game wasn't Timmy's finest hour. I mean, it kind of
No.
it kind of
If we go back to the spring game, everyone's talking about, is this Travis Marsh? Is Travis Marsh going to be the starter? So, maybe why is anybody saying Travis Marsh didn't get a fair shake in this quarterback competition?
Why didn't Jordan Smith get a fair shake in this quarterback competition is what we're really getting at here.
So, I mean, if you want to look at it like that, Marsh in the spring game, now obviously that's not the whole spring. They have practices and stuff, but Marsh, he played well in the spring. He played just about as well, or if not better than Timmy did in the spring game. So why isn't Travis Marsh? Why is this not fair to him?
Yeah, and
they all had the chance to compete, and I think, Bohannon he's an older guy. He's more mature. He's more veteran. He's done it. He's been there, done that, and I don't know if there's a single thing right now that Timmy does better than him.
Spelling his name properly.
that could be. That's more of a parental issue.
Yeah, that starts from the parent tree. But it just makes so much sense, and I feel for Timmy. I understand. His dad was upset they didn't get a fair shake, and parents. That's what parents are supposed to do. I feel whenever Olivia tries to take a starting job for a women's basketball in 2035 or whatever, and doesn't get a fair shake, I'm going to be calling for Jose's head. It's really, I mean, that's just basically what it comes down to at this point. So it just makes sense. It seems harsh, but like, if I were Timmy, I would have simply just won the starting job.
That's on the table. It's allowed to happen.
Like, we've seen it where you bring the transfer in and the guy's not it. Like, we've literally seen it like last year.
So it seems like every single thing, Bohannon has just been a little bit better, a little bit sharper. We heard in the scrimmage that Timmy had some tough times at times in the scrimmage with turnovers. And, you look at every single measurable we have on this team, the grit score, that's from the strength coach and the coaches. Gary wins that. They put out the top speeds during the summer. Gary was faster. His top speed was higher than Timmy McClain's top speed. So it's like every single metric, it seems to be that he won it. And that's no slight to Timmy. It's just that Gary's at this point further along in his career, and he seems to be the guy that needs to take the job, and he went out and took it.
And it makes sense, at least because from Timmy's point of view, like, yeah, I'd be kind of pissed too that you brought in this guy came in, because language properly here, Gary came in, USF was like, yes, please, this is reciprocated, please come in and help us. But like, it just seemed like every time that, Timmy did something impressive or Timmy did something good, you could always, kind of see a little bit more from Gary that was doing better. And that's got to be super frustrating from a guy that, started 8 games or 9 games as a true freshman last year. Like, yeah, you can kind of hope and assume that starting job is going to be yours again going into the next season. But let's be frank, we won 2 games last year. No starting job was going to be safe on this team aside from maybe Dwayne Boyles and Antonio Greer's job. I think that's the reason why they went so aggressive in this portal is we won 2 games last year. We needed to inject more competition into this team because what happened last year wasn't good enough, and bringing in a bunch of freshmen that aren't going to play isn't going to do it either. And for the most part, most of the team took to that competition very well. And, when you bring a guy in like DJ Gordon with Antonio Greer and Dwayne Boyles, and there's only 2 linebacker spots, DJ Gordon recognized what his role is, and so did Jalen Schuler, and so did the DBs that got brought in, and the offensive linemen that got brought in, and the running backs that got brought in, and the wide receivers that got brought in. Everyone has a role on this team for this team to be successful next year. They're going all in on this. It sucks that, a guy almost, it seems like got his feelings hurt that, this happened to him, and that he feels like, or at least from his dad's point of view, that he didn't get a fair shake at this. Shit, that happens in the NFL every single week, every single day. New guys get brought in.
This happens at every level of football.
Yeah.
The whole thing, the making sure guys are in camp so they can't transfer. That happens in high school. You'll hear, I've heard coaches at school say, just let me get him to camp and then he can't leave. It happens everywhere. So, I don't think the unfair treatment thing really flies. And I bet Timmy wasn't upset when Joffrey Brown transferred in to take Sean Atkins' spot. He probably didn't think, hey, that's not fair. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Like, if you can upgrade at a position, that's the coach's job. Because let's not forget, coaches get fired for losing. They have to pick up their families and move if you lose too much. They've lost a lot.
Players don't have to leave for that.
They've lost a lot. So
yes,
their job is to win games and provide a good environment for their players to grow as men and players. If they're doing that, then that's all you can ask of them. And it seems to be they're doing that, and now they just got to do the win games part. And if they think Gary Bohannon starting will help them win more games, I think Jeff Scott's got a pretty nice house down here. Probably doesn't want to have to move anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean it really boils down, like, it's so, like I said, it's so simplistic. Like, if he didn't want this to happen, he should have just won the job. And like, it's callous, but that's just, that's it. It's forget about it, man. It's Chinatown. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's just kind of what happened. That's what happens in this game. And if Timmy had won the starting job, Gary could have transferred. It doesn't matter. What's so mind blowing to me, but I'm not in his head, is he's in the same position he was last year, where he's literally a play away, and God knows, knowing this coaching staff, it could be 2 series. USF could go 3 and out on the first 2 series of the game versus BYU, and then Timmy's back in. So, like, unless they're like, we're gonna ride Gary until the wheels fall off or he gets hurt, and I'm like, no matter what happens, there's nothing that you can do that's going to make us change our mind during the season, then I kind of understand him leaving. But like, you're QB2, you're literally a play away. You're a bad half away with this coaching staff of being QB1 again. And now as we said, you're leaving at literally the worst possible time for your value. Terrible brand management by Timmy in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he pulls himself out of the portal and can add to his value, and then kind of try to maximize his jump. Because right now it's just tough. So I don't know. It just seems like a bad time to leave. It really does, especially if Well, it'll be interesting. This is not necessarily a slight at Timmy or anything, but go back and listen to when Bohannon transferred from Baylor, what Aranda said about Bohannon. It was very interesting how highly he thought of him, how basically he named a starting quarterback after spring so he had a chance to transfer. I'll be interested to see what Jeff Scott says tomorrow on this situation. If this is something he anticipated and was trying his hardest to hold off, or is this just kind of was he surprised, or is this something that they thought may happen? Because they did seem to slow play quite a few things to just make sure that this didn't boil over before they decided it on the field.
Yeah, Tuesday's press conference with Jeff Scott and Gary Bohannon is going to be really interesting to listen to. I hope there's some clarity in the conversation. I'm sure there's going to be, we're going to keep some private stuff private, what have you. But you kind of got to explain what happened. It seemed like last week at this time, hey, we've got 2 guys. We're comfortable, going into the season. Whoever wants a starting job, we've got a guy right behind him that who's more than capable of playing and winning games for us. And now you're down a guy almost 3 hours after you announced the starting quarterback position, at least
not
publicly.
even. It was like 45 minutes.
Yeah, like at least I'm sure he probably put his name in the portal last night when the team was told. Like they knew yesterday. They announced it today to the public, but they knew team meetings yesterday evening, yesterday morning. I doubt they let on more than that. What's also surprising to me is USF's turnaround time and getting him into the portal. Getting him into the portal, where I think they have like 48 hours to actually put him into the portal, and he was in within hours, which good job by them to get him going. I'm sure his phone's been blown up nonstop since then, but then also having him scrub from the website. I mean, just top tier stuff from USF on the speed that had not been seen for quite some time.
That might be the turnaround that we've been looking at. Like that's, we were talking about is, Jeff Scott's decision making and his game management. I think that's indicative of the turnaround here. Is,
confident decision making.
Who was it a few years ago that got into a little bit of legal trouble? I don't want to, say the exact wording of it, but they were on the website for like 2 weeks after.
Kayvon Dingle.
Yes.
What a name.
Ooh, yeah. We won't talk about that story too much, but like, yes, USF has historically been pretty slow to move.
Literally, he was on the roster until I asked about why he was still on the roster.
And then they were like, oh, he's not on the roster. Shit, change it.
Right. So it's just it's interesting to me how quickly they've moved on.
Hey, speaking of being slow with stuff on the opposite end there, what about this?
Oh, really?
So did you guys know that Gary Bohannon was a Davey O'Brien Award watch list candidate?
We discussed it, I think. I remember.
This is not brand new?
No.
This didn't happen today as well?
No, it was not coincidental timing, in fact.
So can I say that my tweet aging like milk this morning about the whole, Timmy staying behind and being a serviceable backup, et cetera, completely was offset by this when I said, hey, it'd be really funny if USF posted this and 30 minutes later.
Oh man, it was art. That was fucking art, man. You couldn't have timed it up better. And that is the most USF thing that could possibly ever happen.
It's like I don't want to be mean. It just seemed like it was just a giant dog and pony show. Like they had that graphic ready to go from like when it was announced, and they wanted everything to seem fair on the outside. And I get it, because if Gary for some odd reason struggled during practices and didn't end up being the starter, like that would also look really shitty if you said, hey, we had this Davey O'Brien Award winner
as our backup.
Timmy McClain is actually going to be the Davey O'Brien winner this year. But I get it from the point of view of what USF was trying to do, protect the brand and charade and everything like that. But that's just fucking hilarious that they had that shit ready to go. Like if they wanted to, Gary Bohannon QB1, Timmy McClain enter transfer portal, and then Gary Bohannon, Davey O'Brien within an hour would have been just.
Or they just put out the release together of McClain going to the portal and Bohannon. I've gotten a request for this video. I'm sure everyone will enjoy watching it.
Hey! You! So we just push each other each and every day. Like whatever it is, we're just looking for a way to compete. Oh, that's touchdown! That's touchdown! That's touchdown! Ready. I would say we actually look at each other as brothers, try to bring the best out of each other. and love on each other at the same time.
Really missed opportunity to do the QB1 thing, but yeah.
Great video from USF football there.
That throw to Jimmy. Whew.
Now, as someone that had Timmy McClain on my fantasy team,
let's get to the important stuff.
I must say that I demand to see the all 22. It's like I told Steeg I'm going to be clamoring for like the Snyder cut. They need to release the all 22. Let me see it. Make sure that this was a fair competition. Right.
Now,
there's a lot riding on this.
Steeg, do we give, since prior to the season even starting, Seth has lost a player, do we allow him to go? Do we allow him to go into the free agency pool?
So I have a proposition here, fellas, because we talked about doing this, and I think at this point it's now the only fair way to do this.
Okay.
We nix the QB position as far as the fantasy.
Well, you know what? I would disagree with you. I will disagree with you.
I don't see why.
What if we nix the? Actually, no, because like I was thinking maybe like a weighted scale of backup playing or something like that. But I just there's no realm in my head that says this is going to be fair because Gary Bohannon's going to throw for like 36 touchdown passes this year.
I mean, that seems like a personal problem, and simply like Timmy, who he should have simply just won the job. You got to.
I should have just had a higher draft pick.
Simply won
the first pick.
Won the
lottery, I don't know
yeah.
what to tell you. You should have won. I don't. There's really.
Yeah.
I mean, I built my entire roster around Gary Bohannon. It
much like Jeff Scott.
Exactly. It wouldn't seem fair that.
Not fair.
I'm sorry. I mean, it's like people who had Cooper Kupp last season, right? I mean, or they had Amon-Ra St. Brown toward the end of the year. Like what? Just because one team had him doesn't mean no. I think it's fair is fair, man. If you wanted Gary, you should have gotten the first pick. Or
I mean, in our eyes, in the eyes of Steeg and I, there's going to be an asterisk on this championship forever. So, I mean, if you even win it, I don't even know.
Yeah, we could have an all. They could really go all out and just go into like a triple option style of offense where, at that point, everything's on the table at that point.
Little bit of a QB win stat.
Ooh,
you only get points if USF wins.
Ooh, that's
interesting.
Spicy.
That's an interesting take right there.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
I think that's interesting.
That's fair. That's about as fair as we're gonna make it.
Now we're rooting against USF this year. All right.
Well, I've always been pro USF. I've never said a bad thing about them, so it only makes sense that this happens. But absolutely, Daniel, I would be saying the exact same thing. But also, such is life. I probably would have taken Trey Marsh.
Second or third? Now, how smart would I look? You guys would have all called me a big dummy if I took Trey Marsh last week, but I would look like a genius tonight.
Yeah, well,
I try to pull that off too, so it doesn't work.
You went a little too far down the road.
You stepped too far, my friend. But you're one step closer, if we're being honest. You are one step closer today than you were last week.
Yes, that is all that matters to me. And I can be completely frank with you that I went into a little bit of a panic mode because I was like, after this whole thing went down, I was like, God, did I just look like a fucking idiot? I messaged all of my sources that would know this to know if Jordan Smith has designed plays in this offense right now. And the bad part is that I haven't heard back from him on it.
They got new phone, who dis?
So Travis Trickett, Daniel DePrado, if you could just respond to Steve real quick. Real quick. Just put
me out of my misery.
DePrado, I mean, this guy could probably return punts, Have you thought about like a Music City Miracle where you throw it back on the kickoff?
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, God. Could we also address the elephant in the room of Jimmy Horn here? or should we not discuss that?
Is there an elephant?
I don't know, because I got asked that about 4,633 times within an hour of Timmy announcing that he was going to transfer. If Jimmy was going to transfer.
Listen, I think they're going to feed him the ball this year, which is why he was my number one non-quarterback pick and the heart and soul of my team. So I think if they do give him a lot of touches this year, I don't know why he'd leave unless he's going to get promised the same thing somewhere else. But it would have to be, I mean, especially if Bohannon's as good as we think and he's going to play 2 years. I think you would just stay and ride it out. In offense, you're going to get a ton of touches, and you'll see. And Weaver will probably be gone after the end of this year, right? So,
yeah,
you won't have to share as much, but you'll still have some guys around you, so you can get single covered.
Jeff Scott has talked multiple times about RDR: recruit, develop, retain. He recruited Jimmy. He's developed him into be a pretty good wide receiver. It's that third one that's going to be vital after this season. If he pops off, that collective's going to have to siphon some money off and make sure that Jimmy stays. Otherwise, it would behoove him to play up a level.
I still maintain that he could start at every school in the state of Florida.
100%. He's probably the best wide receiver in the state that's a sophomore. Had to put a lot of clarifiers on that, but yeah, he's got so much talent that, like, for USF at least, and for him at least, it doesn't make sense for him to leave at this point. I mean, he's starting wide receiver for the team. He's going to get plenty of touches. The issue is going to be after December 13th, 2022, and from then until onward, to ensure that he stays here by whatever means necessary. He could absolutely go to any school. He could go to Florida and be wide receiver 1 there too.
Eric, it's way too soon for that.
Yeah, that's not funny.
That's not funny at all.
You're going to hurt some feelings.
That is not funny.
Well, I mean, luckily Nathaniel Dell's too small.
Too small to play here at USF. I do not want this to happen. But Anthony Richardson and Jimmy Horn on the same field together would be intriguing.
Be like TNT.
That's a lot.
Like, I wholeheartedly do not want that to happen.
They may fill up
fun football.
They may fill up at receiver. They got like 6 freshmen coming into receiver, but they'd take Jimmy if he wanted to come in. I really think any school in the state would take him. Most schools in the country would take him. And I don't know if he'd start everywhere. He'd play everywhere. He is very explosive and very good with the ball in his hands.
Yes.
And just ask Cincinnati.
Yep. He also has that kind of it factor you want from a wide receiver. And I'm excited to see what him and Gary can do on the field this year. I think him and Xavier Weaver have done a really good job kind of developing that room. Yusuf Terry's kind of coming along. What was really cool on the video of Gary on that rushing touchdown was that was Holden Willis out there throwing that block, wasn't it?
And he had a catch in that video as well.
So Holden Willis is turning some heads in practice. Everyone talks about like gadget players. You kind of think of like a running back wide receiver combo. We have like a very unique gadget player with Holden Willis being a massive, massive receiving target, as well as a pretty damn good downfield blocker.
He's that true flex guy that you hear coaches talk about all the time, being able to be in line and split out in the slot. He is truly that guy. I'm excited. It just, regardless of what happened today, it's still an exciting time for USF football. I think it's going to be a fun season. They may get their teeth kicked in a few times. So be it. I mean, it's a really, really tough schedule, but I'm excited to see where the season goes. I think Gary can, if Timmy can throw 1,800 yards in this offense, I think Gary could throw like 28. He's just a much better passer against worse teams. I mean, let's call it a spade. It's going to be worse teams for the most part in conference play than what he faced. I mean, he doesn't have like Kansas on the schedule or anything like that. But I mean, he lit up West Virginia last season. He did it against some pretty good teams.
He beat the BYU Cougars last year.
He did.
Speaking of which, after this kind of got circulated and started to hit the market, aka when Brett Murphy tweeted it out, there's been quite a lot of not movement, but there's been quite a lot of chit chatter from the pundits out there about USF upsetting BYU in week 1, especially after getting ranked at number 25 in the AP poll. There's a lot of BYU fans that are quite more worried at this point in their conjecture. So
they should be. I mean, this entire USF roster is a complete unknown.
Right. I mean, that's the fun thing about this year. And frankly, it's why I kind of haven't been really paying attention to the odds books and, you know, the 4.5 win segment. You know, it's to me kind of the week to weeks more than the overall season. I don't know how you can project anything on this team that has a brand new offensive coordinator that hasn't been an offensive coordinator in a while, a defensive coordinator that hasn't been a defensive coordinator in a while, a new quarterback, basically an all new offense at this juncture, a brand new defense, a whole new defensive line. There's not much continuity from last year up until this year. You know, the only really things that have stayed constant is the head coach at this point. You know, the staff has had to learn a new system and, you know, get things going that way. So I don't know how.
And nobody could watch the spring game too.
And no one knew.
As Chrissy says,
that's a great point.
That's a great point by Chrissy.
Great point.
Probably the most important part. Probably the most important of all those is that nobody could watch the spring game.
Nobody could see the spring game.
No one could. But like, I don't know what the fuck Trickett has been doing this entire offseason. Like, I know we joke about the spring game not being filmed so that, you know, BYU can't see what's going on. Like, how is BYU preparing for this offense? Like, you know the guys that you have to circle and say, okay, we got to make sure we have them covered. But there's so many new pieces that are going to be utilized this year that, you know, USF just might as well just throw smoke screens the entire time, you know, get swing passes to Holden Willis, you know, on a weak side when you have Xavier Weaver and Jimmy and Joffrey Brown on the left. Like, there's so much potential of what this offense can be that it's like, I don't know how you can really project what's going on.
Yeah, it's not going to be the same thing they saw last year, that's for sure, in personnel or scheme. So, and Eric, I think this was more in terms of quality depth, right? Isn't that kind of what he was? I'm sure they're bigger and everyone's bigger, faster, stronger now, right, at the end of the offseason. But he said that in spring in terms of having quality depth and feeling like he had he was using the full 85 scholarships on quality Division I players. Is that how you took it, Nate?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was more like we're not dropping off from like, you know, a starter to like me.
A walk-on. Yeah, like we're the COVID year where you had like walk-ons playing every week and starting for you. It's not
right.
It's not like that. Just look at the linebacker room now. Like USF had to play walk-ons at linebacker the last few years. Look at it now. You feel really good about 4 or 5 guys there now.
Yep. I think that's it for the night. I think we've covered it. We've hit the major points. We've hit the high points, the low lights, everything in between. There's potential that we're back with another podcast this week if Jeff Scott says something juicy on Tuesday. And I've got some eyes and ears that'll be at the luncheon on Wednesday as well. So we'll keep you guys posted. On Saturday, what's happening Saturday? Steeg, up until Friday at like midnight, right? People can still use your discount code Steeg5 for $5 off your USF Bulls block party ticket, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thanks for the detail.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Appreciate it. So I'll be out there. Samantha will be out there. We'll have some fun. Yes, Seth?
Wednesday night, the greatest show to ever hit VSN Suncoast, which is brand new.
Oh, yes.
Next level, Wednesday night at 7. Watch it. If you watch it and send me a picture of you watching it, I will put your name in the credits the next week. How about that? Then 3 people can see your name in the credits.
How about it?
Next level, VSN. You can see my tweet here. Find it on Roku and Apple TV. It's a streaming app. Download it. VSN Suncoast, Wednesday at 7 show. And then the following week, these guys are going to be on. And they'll be on every week. And we're going to pick all the games in the state of Florida. And whoever has the best record at the end of the year wins a big trophy.
I'm excited to win.
Let's see. Hold on. I have a trophy here. You guys can tell me if this is kind of what the style we want to go for here. Hold on.
That's pretty good.
Do you want to go something like this?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes.
What trophy is that for? What's the actual?
This is the Big Bowl Classic. It's a game in my family every year for the bowl games. You can pick all the bowl games and have to pick the spread closest. So it's a lot of fun.
Perfect. Well, let's sign off on this. On that note, be sure to check out Seth's show at Wednesday at 7 p.m. Yeah, he'll tweet it. We'll post it from the house account as well. Make sure up until I think midnight Friday night, use Steeg 5 for $5 off the USF Bulls block party. I'll be there. Samantha will be there. Steeg will be there. We'll have, I think Colin will be there for a little bit. We'll have like a Daily Stampede meetup and have some fun. Enjoy some drinks, adult beverages, and kind of talk about the upcoming season. And then if Jeff Scott says something juicy on Tuesday about the competition, we may be back sooner than next week. For Seth and Steeg, I am, as always, Nathan Bond. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like us on Facebook, Twitter, download, subscribe, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. This has been the Bulluminati Podcast. Signing off. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.